Welcome to another 3 True Scary Stories from Reddit. Before we begin, I would like to say that the stories will be in the description below if you want to read along with me. With that being said, let's begin. Number 1. I just recently started using Reddit, and I first came across this sub. So I thought an experience I had when I was a teen would be worthy to post here. Now, it was late in 1999 when I was 15. I lived about 3 miles from my school, so my mom would pick me up every day. But this time, she was running a little bit late, so I went to go and get a drink while I waited. Anyone who lives in Queensland knows how hot summers get when you're just standing around. So I went into the nearest KFC bathroom about 60 seconds from my school so I can take my itchy tights off. Then, I went to the gas station next door to get a drink. As I walked in, a guy who was walking through the car park walked into the gas station right behind me and kept following me down every aisle. From what I remember, he was pretty old and all of his clothes were dirty. So I'm guessing he was either very poor or homeless. I avoided making eye contact with him. I walked around all of the aisles to try to get rid of him, but I knew he was still walking behind me. So I thought, fuck the drink. I'll go back to the KFC where it was a bit more crowded, so people can do something if anything bad happens. I walked over quickly and got in the back of the line for food. To my horror, I see him coming through the door. I thought, this can't be a coincidence, and I was right. He comes right behind me and starts talking to me. I ignore him whenever he'd asked how old I was and where I was from. But then, he put his hand around my arm from behind me. So I shouted, "What the fuck are you touching me for?" and walked towards the counter. This grabbed a lot of people's attention. A lot of people were looking at me, but honestly, I didn't care. Luckily, a manager was on duty, so I called him over and he came out and asked what the commotion was. After I told him that he was following me and really bothering me, the manager asked him to leave the establishment or the cops would be called. And after stuttering and trying to come up with something to say, he just left the restaurant in a rage. All I can think was this had happened to me. I thought this was just something you heard on the news, and that it was some sort of rare occurrence. But nope, it can happen to anyone. Random pervert, pedo, and potential kidnapper, let's not meet. 1990s manager of KFC, let's meet again so I can thank you. I didn't get the chance last time. Number 2. So, this was told to me by an old family friend, Nikki, numerous times as a kid growing up, as one of those life advice stories to keep in mind through the years. And to her credit, I have never forgotten it. Whenever anything associated with hitchhiking comes up, it always springs to mind, and probably always will. Makes me a bit ill whenever I think about it, actually. So Nikki, who grew up at the same time as my dad, so this was about early 80s I believe, was a young woman in her mid-20s. She's one of those real kind-hearted souls, always willing to help another out in their time of need, you know? And I can't imagine her being anything other than that when she was younger, so I totally see her doing this too. So, driving into the city, about a 2-hour or so drive out from town, she saw a man walking down the side of the road. As she neared, he turned and, in typical hitchhiker manner, stuck out the old arm and thumb. Nikki, bless her heart, pulled over and asked him if he needed any help. She told me that he was really polite, if not a bit shy, when he asked for a lift into the city. Nikki gave a smile and popped open the passenger door for the guy, who tossed his bag into the back seat and buckled up for the ride ahead. They talked pleasantly for most of the trip, about friends, the news, you know, happy small talk. She felt that they were getting on really well, and even bought him dinner at the pit stop a little over halfway there. She said he seemed really flustered and awkward when she paid, but one of the things they had talked about was money, and how he was pretty dang strapped for cash, which was why he was hitchhiking in the first place. But he eventually relented, and they went on their way. As soon as they got into the city, he thanked her profusely for the ride and the food, and asked to be dropped off once they hit downtown. Before getting out, he asked for Nikki's phone number so we can contact her someday and catch up. Thrilled at the prospect of knowing how her new friend was faring, Nikki wrote it down for him and drove off with a warm feeling of a good deed done. Now, I'm sorry if you were expecting something creepy to have happened by now, but I think this is what freaked me out so much as a kid. How nice everything seemed to have worked out. Nikki gets this crease in her forehead and a funny look in her eye when she tells me the next part. How a week later, she got a phone call from her driving buddy. He didn't let her get a word in edgewise after hello, and told her that she should thank God that she was raised so nice, because when he first got into her car, he was planning on raping and murdering her once they got to that pit stop. That he was going to steal that car and dump her body in a ditch further down the road and go on his merry way. But after she talked with him so kindly and treated him to dinner with a smile on her face, he couldn't bring himself to do it. He didn't think that he could live with himself after doing that to such a nice lady. And to please, Nikki, please, never, ever pick up another hitchhiker. Then he hung up the phone. Nikki never got a call from him again, and when she tried redialing the number, she got a payphone. And so, Mr. Hitchhiker, I know I'm never going to meet you, because I'm going to listen to the advice you gave your driving buddy, and never, ever pick up a hitchhiker. Number 3. I've had many weird experiences and encounters in my life. I read these stories all the time from brave people who shared, so I decided to share one of mine. This is my first Reddit post here, so here it goes. I grew up in an affluent neighborhood about 45 minutes from a major city in the US. My neighborhood was a total bedroom community around 4,000 people, which means virtually no crime, aside from stupid rich-tard kids driving around hitting mailboxes with the baseball bat. I had much more sense early on because both of my parents worked hard and taught me the value of doing the same, along with other virtues like respect and just generally not being a total clown-shoes asshole to people. Anyway, for reference, this happened when I was around 12 in the late 90s. I'm a girl, and though I've since grown about 4 feet, I was about 5'2" and probably barely 100 pounds. I've always been very athletic, playing multiple sports from the time I was even mildly conscious, because I have a good number of high-level athletes in my family, including my dad. My mom is from a major city, and taught me the value of awareness of my surroundings early. All this will make sense in a moment. She always told me to have my keys to our house out and in my hand as soon as I got off the bus to walk down my street home, though I never knew why. I'm so glad she always stressed this because I'm pretty certain it saved my life. So, one day, I say bye to my friends and hop off the bus to take the short walk down to my house. My street curves in a half circle, which makes it difficult to see around the curve. So basically, you can only see a bit in front and behind as you walk. It's the least creepy street ever. neighbors all around, with a comfortable distance between houses. As I'm mindlessly walking around my curving street, I get a funny feeling that makes me turn and look behind me, just as the crossing street is going out of my view. I see a man walking down the street that mine makes a T-shape with, the one I was dropped off on. Weird, I think, as I've never seen him before, and not to say we know everyone, but what struck me was that he wasn't really dressed like people did around there. He was dressed fine in jeans and a polo, both of which were way too big. I shrugged and kept walking, but something was really bothering me about this guy. I was about to walk by my next door neighbor's house, still pondering what was making me feel scared, when I looked back again. I figured I'd have to walk out into the street a bit to see where he went, but no. I had walked a fair distance, but this guy was suddenly no more than 10 feet from me. You always think in situations like this, you'd scream or something, but my breath caught in my throat. I couldn't fathom how he'd gotten so close that fast, and his wide-eyed, hyper-focused stare threw daggers into my stomach. I knew I was in big, big trouble. Not wanting to find out what the fuck he wanted, who he was, or why he was gaining on me, I went directly into flight mode, knowing my house was about 100 yards away. I noped hard. I took off running across my driveway and realized he was running after me, because I heard his feet on the asphalt and then on my driveway. I know he was close because I ran track, but I didn't waste any time looking back. Realizing my backpack, which probably weighed half of what I did, was slowing me down, I threw my arms back, holding my keys in a death grip. I knew I could outrun him if I weren't so heavy, and my backpack slipped off. I was able to gain distance on him, and I don't know if it was panic or adrenaline, but my front door keyhole became huge in my eyesight, and I jammed my key in and got inside. I slammed my big-ass oak door so hard that it recoiled, and half thinking about what could happen if he got into my empty house, I slammed it closed and locked it. I stood there for a second, just wide-eyed and confused, until I realized I should look out of the peephole. When I did, it was pitch black. More confusion. It was 3 p.m. I stood looking and started to shake uncontrollably. That's when I saw why it was black. Light started coming through as I saw this fucking creep's eye, and then him backing away from my door, having tried to look in. He was that close to me. He stood there for a moment, eyeballing my door and house, probably looking for another way in. Then, he started turning around on my porch to face the street, cursing under his breath. I could see him mouthing it, but couldn't hear partially because I was in total shock. Then, he raises the creep factor to new heights. He skip walks off my porch, across my giant lawn to the street in the same direction we had been running, and raises his hand into the air. From behind my very tall pine trees on the right side of my vantage point, I see a white, windowless van pull up in front, and he hops in. I can't see the driver because of the tinted windows in front, but they sat there, and I swear I could feel them looking at my door, maybe figuring out what to do next. I'm shaking writing this now. They drove off, and I slumped to the floor, shaking and freaking out so hard, I legitimately had to crawl to my kitchen. I hid and called my mom, who, despite working all the way downtown in the city, made the 45-minute drive home in 15. She drove around, ready to pull their spines out because, although she's the kindest person I've ever known, she will kick your ass, or worse, if you mess with me. We called the cops and I gave my statement, but they never found those freaks. So, creepy bait and switch kidnappers. Let's not ever meet. Thank you for listening to another 3 True Scary Stories from Reddit. Remember, if you liked this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe for future content. Until next time, have a great night everyone, and as always, stay safe.